Okay, 7:57 a.m. approaching on Friday morning's OTB AM, the sports breakfast show with Off the Ball. Myself and Aisling with you until 10 o'clock as well this morning. Delighted to reflect on the game more now from last night, the French 3-0 win over the Republic of Ireland at Tallaght Stadium with the Manchester United Irish star AOIFE Mannion. Good morning, Aoife. How are things?
Hi Shane, hi Aisling, lovely to be on. Thanks for having me on.
Hi Aoife, how are you?
Thanks for coming on. How does it feel watching the match last night? Is it bittersweet? Is it exciting? What are the overriding emotions when you're sitting down to watch the game?
I always say it's more nerve-wracking watching the games than actually playing in them. So I was so excited to see how they got on. Obviously, I know that we're gonna talk about the game, but the overall sense was leading into the game just a real sort of happiness for them with a send-off game at Tallaght. Obviously, that game against Zambia last week, I have family that went to the game, so I was really, really excited in the lead-up for them to get a really nice send-off heading off to the World Cup.
Some definite positives to take, I guess, from the match last night. Aoife, like clearly the quality of opposition in France, that's about as good as you can expect to play against. Australia and Canada will certainly be of a level, but maybe just below where France are at in the last few years. So I guess getting opposition of that quality is something Vera Pauw has really hammered home in the last few years. That's an important thing for this group of players.
Yeah, I mean, make no joke, France are one of the best teams in the world. I think they're ranked 5th, and really they're a bit of an unknown quantity. They have some quality players. Obviously, they've just had a manager, so things have changed with their tactics, with their players. So it would have been hard to really predict what they were going to be like in the game. And crucially, they changed their formation at half-time as well, which I thought really disrupted the flow of the game. I've got one old United teammate. She was a centre-half in the first half, and then she was like left wing in the second half. And so that sort of speaks to, credit to them, their flexibility and how they adapted in the game. And I hope that it doesn't get lost in the scoreline that actually France are a really, really top team and will definitely be pushing at the World Cup to do big things.
I was listening to, I think it was Karen Duggan on telly after the match last night, and she was saying Denise O'Sullivan's late yellow card was, I think, Ireland's only yellow card in the match, and she was making the point she'd like to see a little bit more physicality, aggression. Now, she's not obviously looking for more players to get booked, but maybe a little bit more aggression and maybe playing on the edge. Would you like to see a little bit more of that from the Irish team, that maybe head into a World Cup that could be a positive thing?
I think something that you could never accuse the girls of doing is not putting in enough effort or aggressiveness. So me as a defender, that's kind of my bread and butter, and that's all of the girls' bread and butter that are defenders. So maybe there are instances, I didn't see it myself. I think physicality is something that they will always bring in spades. And also what you've got to remember as well is the formation that they were set out in. Our team, Ireland, it's a 5 at the back, so it's not necessarily something where there's going to be real clear 1v1 moments all over the pitch. It's a lot more about tactics, containing the opposition, and then getting really good opportunities, potentially on the build-up, but a lot on the break as well. So for me, knowing those girls, I know that physicality, it can never be questioned, and it's always at the fore. But we can always have these questions, can't we?
Yeah, if you're definitely playing that style of play, you have to be patient. And we were just speaking about the positives there within the Irish performance, mainly maybe the first 30-40 minutes. For you, what did you make of maybe the link-up play up front with Ciara Carusa, Sinead Farley, Marissa Shiva in particular?
I thought in the first 40 minutes we did really, really well. Ciara Carusa has sort of came out of nowhere really in the last few games to develop herself as that sort of lone point target number 9, and I'm absolutely delighted for her. She's a lovely girl, and certainly in those first portion of the game she did really well. She's a really good hold up player, and I think the system that we play in, it really suits having a strong, confident target person. And there was one moment where I was watching it and she got the ball and then she kind of Cruyffed it behind Wendy Renard. We're talking about the most prolific central defender in the whole world, really, Wendy Renard. So, kudos to her, and I hope that she can continue with that confidence. Obviously, my other mates, Amber Barrett and other people like that who are only going to come into the fore and add on top of that. But really, last night, I think showed a real taste of what Ciara's going to try and bring at the World Cup.
We talked about where it went wrong, and we wondered maybe was it Katie McCabe going off. What is it like to be in and around Katie McCabe? Like, is it her presence? Obviously we see it with her football, but she wasn't overly having a massive effect football wise last night, but is it her presence as well that she really brings to the team?
You know, there's lots of leaders on the pitch in terms of players who are captains for their club, which is unusual actually. So just off the top of my mind, you've got sort of Denise Sullivan at North Carolina, obviously Kate McCabe. I'm sure Louise is in the mix there as well. But really, obviously, Katie is our captain. So it's not just sometimes what someone does, either talking wise or on the pitch. Sometimes it's just that presence. It's knowing that you're lining out against someone who really does not, they have no fear, and she does not care who she's playing against, what team it is, and that can kind of give you that confidence. And look, sometimes moments just happen like that. You know, I think the moment when France started to be able to bring in some of their wingers into play a bit better, and they sussed that was the way that they were going to have to go, rather than trying to play in between our midfield and our defence, which we're always very good at keeping those gaps really small. I think when they sussed that out and they thought, right, we're going to go around Ireland, I think that's when the momentum started to change. So obviously that coincided shortly with Katie McCabe coming off, and you know, as a player, it's never nice to see a fellow teammate going off the pitch injured as well. I'm not saying that would have affected. I don't necessarily think it would have, but it's definitely a mute moment when that happens. So maybe a bit of everything.
I'm sure there's a lot of mental fatigue as well with the team, Aoife, naturally, given the tail end of the season, and then of course the squad selection, the pressure and all of that in the last number of weeks. So clearly there's been a lot of I guess stress laid onto these players. So, you know, when you see some of the little things that led to goals last night that are maybe concerns, at least I guess they're happening now and not in 2 weeks' time.
Well, it's definitely the case that, you know, what's happening now is a dry run for the World Cup. So you take the little bits and bobs now rather than 2 weeks' time. In terms of maybe being tired or fatigue, actually the schedule that they've been having I think has been really good. It's been giving them a few days off in the week to return to their families in Ireland and, you know, just have a little bit of downtime and then be able to keep that intensity. That said, you know, as a player, they'd know that they were in the run into the World Cup, so you're always going to have that anticipation. And also you're playing in front of a record teller crowd for the Irish women, you know, Ireland women's game. So there will be that as well. Potentially it's good to get that extra atmosphere. Certainly my first cap for Ireland over in Spain a few months ago, that there wouldn't have been any atmosphere at all. So it was really good that those girls are going to get that in spades, because obviously that first opener against Australia, I think it's in a sellout crowd of something like 80,000. So I think it's all good things, and it's all hopefully going to be built on and taken forward.
I presume you're heading over to Australia yourself in a viewing capacity. Like it's I guess, how do you feel about the whole thing now? Because I know you are so close and so unlucky with injuries, and timing is everything, I guess, when it comes to squad selection. But how's your head feeling now, and how are you thinking about it all at this stage?
Well, firstly, thanks for asking. Look, there's a few of us that just missed out for various reasons, and I was gutted at the time. And I think the squad announcement was something around Tuesday last week. And I ended up, I just got a knee brace off that I'd had on for a few weeks. And then I stayed over in Ireland for the week. I didn't get in touch with our physio back at United. Stayed with my family, and they kind of, you know, got around me, and, you know, we did things. I went to the Mayo Dublin quarter final in Croke Park. Won't say anything about the result. So I did a few things just to put my feet back on the ground. You know, take a little dose of reality. And then by the time I came back to England this week, back to United, I've been more of the verve to like approach it in the right way. And I'd said at the time, look, I'm going to go to Australia, and I didn't realise I hadn't really properly got that okayed from the physios and from the manager at United. So I'm pleased to say that they're supporting that. I'd sort of put the cart before the horse. So I'd sort of said that, and I hadn't actually checked, but they were delighted for me. So I've booked my flights. I'll be eating rice and beans when I'm over there. No, I've booked my flights and I'm absolutely buzzing to sort of go. And I think I'm doing the second best thing. So the first best thing is going over and playing, and then the second best thing is sort of being in the mix as much as I can. Told the girls that I'm going, so I'm really, really looking forward to it.
That's a brilliant mindset to have, Aoife. Is that something that you've always had? Like, I read your tweet not long after it was announced and you're congratulating the girls and saying how proud they should be. Like, that's an incredible way to be able to look at things. Is that something you've always had?
Oh, thank you. I don't know if it's necessarily something that I've been aiming for, and there's probably moments that you'd catch me where maybe I wouldn't be able to hit that note quite as good, but on the whole I'm trying to take that mindset, and also a big thing is knowing those girls, knowing their characters, their personalities, knowing their families, knowing if they're anything like my family. That would be one of the biggest achievements in your whole life. So I'm just so pleased for them to obviously get that opportunity, as I would have wanted to have. And so I'm delighted for them, and especially for players like Denise O'Sullivan, who has just done 100 caps on her last camp. And so there's players that have seen that from day one to where it is now, and it's so important for them to get that, almost like the fruits of, or the rewards of everything they've put in. So there's that history that comes with it as well, that it will be really, really nice to sit and watch that. And obviously I've only been sort of lucky enough to kind of come into it really late, and hopefully my journey will go on well past the World Cup. But there's a lot of those girls who for this has been a long time coming, so that's going to be really nice to sort of see it and witness.
That's the attitude as well, isn't it, Aoife? Like, when you think back to your opening cap, as you say, against China in February, I know it's hard to think beyond the World Cup at this current juncture, but all of a sudden in a month, 2 months time, this will all be over, and I guess the future squads will be the question. And clearly you have the ability and the mindset to be very much a part of the Irish setup for years to come. You're only 27 as well, so I guess you've plenty of time left at the international stage, you would imagine, and hope.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think the one thing about football is with any moment or experience or tournament, there's always one more. There's always the next thing. So obviously last week when I've been pushing to try and get into the squad, then the next thing is obviously to come back into club, and then you're pushing for Champions League, or you're pushing for the new season, and then there's obviously things on the international circuit as well. But right now, obviously, I've still got my World Cup hat on, but there is always those things that are sort of pushing you along and remind you that there's just no time to wallow. And also, why would I want to miss out on the opportunity to celebrate the girls over in Australia? So there's that as well. And if you knew all the girls, you'd be saying the exact same thing. And so that's probably how I look at it.
You'd posted on Instagram, I know you'd suffered that knee injury towards the tail end of the season with United, and as I said, the timing of that is terrible. But you posted an Instagram story, I think, from Carrington, the United training ground, with your cast off for the first time in a while, and then you'd see the Aer Lingus plane heading over to Dublin, of course, for the squad selection. But do you have to then, was it, I guess, up to you to make a pitch to say, I feel ready, I feel okay? Or how does that conversation happen? Because clearly, and you could see it from Vera Pauw in the days leading up to the squad announcement, she was dreading having those conversations with players.
Yeah, I would not. I definitely wouldn't be jealous of those sorts of decisions that managers have to make. As a player, we only have to look after ourselves, and like you're saying, making a pitch for yourself. And so obviously I did go over on the plane, and we had a really good conversation, a really long conversation, and I put myself across the best that I could. And she has to weigh up so many things, not just one particular player. She has to weigh up how it's all going to come together. And ultimately, by the time when we left that conversation, we were able to have a hug. I was able to wish the team good luck, and so I was so pleased that I got over, even just to see everyone. And then obviously the following day to that was when the squad was announced, and I saw the girls before the squad had been before that it had been announced internally, before they knew. And you know, it's just that anticipation for everyone, hoping that they're gonna be able to get going. And so it was nice to sort of just, you know, wish people good luck on an individual level. But yeah, I did go over, like, looking back now, it felt very foreboding. Me putting a picture of Aer Lingus on my Instagram. It was one of those regional airlines as well, that's a bit kind of, you know, to each side and a bit side to side. So but no, look, it was all, I think it was all sort of in the cut and thrust of football, and you know, it was all done in the right way. And I don't take any particular negative feeling off the back of that. If anything, I've sort of feel resolved with the situation, put my case across, and then that was that.
Yeah, I spoke to some of the players. We did a send-off party, and then the next day as well, which would have been 2 days after the squad was announced, and it was very bittersweet for them. Yes, they were going to a World Cup, they were so excited, and they knew it was a phenomenal opportunity, but you couldn't but get the sense that they just, you know, felt bad for the players that didn't get going. What was it like afterwards when you heard the news? Did you get to spend time with them? Were you able to chat to them? That sort of thing?
So I wasn't with them anymore after they had found out. I'd sort of left a bit before that. My aunt had kindly picked me up from UCD in Dublin, and we'd went out for some lunch to sort of lick the wounds a little bit. But no, you're right. I was surprised actually how many of the girls had referenced people missing out in their posts, because I think if you looked at every national team and sort of looked at what people would say about how delighted they were, I think you'd see very, very few players that would even, you know, not that you would anyway, but that would even think to potentially mention that it might be bittersweet. And obviously there are some girls on the team that, you know, it would have been really, really gutting for them. You know, Jamie Finn, for example. And obviously one of my counterparts playing over here in England as well, Meg Campbell, you know, through injury. So bits like that. So it was, yeah, I thought, like, wow, that's a testament to their character as well, that would even be on their mind on potentially not the best day of their life, but the best day of their life, that the players would even have it within themselves to sort of make note of that. And I think that's all the more reason why whatever happens on the pitch in Australia, everybody should be really behind this group of players as a set of people as well.
Do you manage, Aoife, to in the days afterwards, I guess, lean on, and I guess in professional sport you have the opportunity to chat to sports psychologists and therapists about how you're feeling about all these things, and I guess also leaning on the other players that you mentioned there, the likes of Megan Campbell and Leanne Kiernan and Jamie Finn, all talented players who were within such a narrow margin of making this squad, same as yourself. So have you managed to talk to others, including those girls, maybe about how the feelings have materialised?
Yeah, definitely. I've chatted to a lot of the players, and I've chatted to a couple who weren't able to make the squad in the end. I was chatting to Megan yesterday, for example, and I said to her, you know, are you able to watch the game? Because not always would people be able to watch the game so soon. And she was like, yeah, of course I'm watching it. I have to watch it. So obviously there's people are personally disappointed, but also have it within us to be like, no, we have to watch it. We're delighted for them, and bits like that. And, you know, mentioned sort of sports psychologists and getting yourself right with your mindset and that sort of stuff. That's obviously massive as well. And the people that I've been around have said, you know, that, you know, you've had something that you wanted and it didn't happen, and it's sort of, what now? How can we make the best of this situation? And it's just a nice place to live in when you have that mentality.
And just looking club-wise then as well, Aoife, you know, a brilliant year for Manchester United, and you've Champions League football as well to look forward to.
Yeah, we've got some Champions League football, which is so exciting, because it's our first time doing that. And we've got into a round of the qualifying for it, so we're not quite in the group stage yet. And we're lucky because we came second rather than third. We get to miss out one of the qualifiers, and we're lucky because it means we get more holiday. We get an extra week. The first qualifier would have been a bit earlier, so that's all helped me go to Australia as well, even if it is as a capacity as a fan rather than a footballer. So yeah, there's lots and lots of exciting things in terms of club as well that I'm really excited to. And then hopefully on the 23rd of September, massive match up at the Aviva for Ireland, and I really hope that I can be involved in that.
Absolutely, touch wood. How do you feel about Alessia Russo's departure? I know a lot of United fans and players will be disappointed, but I guess that's football. These things happen. Transfers, players come and go. So obviously disappointing for the club, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing for the club. It's disappointing for everyone. It's disappointing for me. And it's disappointing because, one, she's becoming a world class player, and two, just being around her. She's just so good to everyone. She's so nice. When I did my knee at United, she wrote me out a little card. She sent me a little anchor bracelet. She's one of those people that just she thinks about what's going under the lid with different people and different different ones of us. So I'm really going to miss Alessia actually, and also we've got. I wish we still had her on a badge, one of the Spanish right backs. So we're going to miss her as well. But definitely Alessia, and she's only going to fly now. She's only going to thrive. And unfortunately, it's not going to be at our club. But as a friend, I'm going to watch on and be excited for her.
And just in terms of your own contract, Aoife, I know you signed a 2-year contract back in July 2021. So does this mean that you're able to give us a little bit of an update that you're going to be staying on?
I'd love to give a big expose out here. So I think if I told you everything, I'd probably turn over my phone there next to my laptop and I'd be seeing all sorts of calls. But it's really exciting. This next couple of years are really exciting, and hopefully we're all going to find out in due course. I'm sorry to be so vague. I wish I could.
We tried our best.
Tell you exactly what's happening, but it's only good things, and it's only things that hopefully people will be happy with.
Brilliant.
I'm sure you weren't being vague as to who you were supporting in Croke Park last weekend, Aoife. I know I think your dad's from Galway and your mother's from outside Kilmaine and Mayo, so that's a bit of a controversial one, having a parent from each. But last weekend in particular, I know you would have played a lot of Gaelic football growing up with Warwickshire and that. So I mean, how are the emotions coping in Croke Park last weekend? I'm sure it was disappointing.
Oh, it was a sickening day out. It was not what we wanted at all. That first half, there was only a point in it at half time, and I thought, well, actually I had a flight to catch, so I was hoping that it wouldn't go to extra time because I was going to have to make a call whether to miss the flight or obviously not miss the flight but miss half time. That was where my mindset was. That was when my mindset was at half time, that it could go to extra time. And obviously then it ran away from us, and it was really not a good watch in the end. So that's such a shame. I had so many family down there, so we were sort of wallowing together, if you like. But I've already started the calls for Mayor for Sam 2024. I don't know if it's too soon yet, but it's
never too soon,
isn't it? It's the anticipation that kills you. So it was not the best day out. But I really don't think that there's anything that will match a packed out Croke Park. I love Wembley in England. Obviously that's the biggest sort of football soccer stadium, but those feels of when you go in and it's packed out at Croke Park, there's just nothing that will beat that for me.
Because I know that Gaelic football is in the heritage of the Irish community in Birmingham. There would be so popular. Even I think Jack Grealish would have played Gaelic football growing up as well. You'd have known Jack a little bit from primary school, am I right in saying, Aoife?
Yeah, we went to the same secondary school, and then we sort of played for rival Gaelic football teams, and we did actually go away with Warwickshire on the same team once or twice, and we managed to play in like half time at a Leinster final back, I don't know, like 15 years ago. And the game on Sunday, actually, it had two teams, one from France and one from Germany, that were playing at half time, which I thought was really cool, and I thought they looked really good. I didn't know that they played Gaelic football in Germany, so that was quite good to watch, actually. Obviously there's an Irish contingent over there, clearly, or else they've just been watching YouTube videos. So no, that was really good to watch.
What was Jack Grealish like as a Gaelic footballer?
Yeah, he was great. He was class, much to my annoyance, because we would have been marking each other in the middle of the pitch. Always very skillful, very technical. Would have had that work rate and that ability to get around the pitch as well. So, he was, obviously the shining star of his team. Like I say, much to my annoyance.
And Mayo for Sam maybe next year, Aoife, and I know your uncle Pat Kelly would have played for Mayo, I think, as well. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, and he's actually listening. I know that he's listening on to this because I told him that I was going to be on. So hi, Pat, if you're listening. Pat, my uncle Pat, he used to play for Mayo, and that just made everything all the more special and exciting. And I never forget how I feel as a kid, obviously looking up to people who are playing sport. So I try my best to do that for sort of the young kids now, because you sort of forget how much of a special thing it is as a kid to have someone older sort of to look up to and to have a bit of a role model. So Pat he has two kids now. One of them's called Ava, and she's sort of like not a mini me, but she's a little cousin. So I always make sure I try and give her a few United bits and stuff like that to make sure that hopefully she can feel as excited as I did when I was her age looking up to Pat.
Absolutely. Shout out to Pat this morning.
Brilliant,
watching in. I think Pat won an All-Ireland club title with St Vincent as well, so man steeped in GAA tradition. Aoife, you've been really good with your time this morning. Thanks a million. Hopefully we'll check back in with you again very soon.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Great stuff. AOIFE Mannion there, Irish